And we'll see also there is, an issue of the circumcision again in verse 45. This is chapter 2, verse 45. It says, "And Mattathias and his friends went around and tore down the altars," this is the outbreak of this rebellion, "and forcibly circumcised all the uncircumcised boys that they found within the borders of Israel." So again, circumcision, key marker. If Antiochus IV wanted to break these people away from their ancestral tradition, he enforced non-circumcision. The rebels, in trying to, maintain or fighting to maintain that cultural tradition, enforces circumcision. So you can see that circumcision is a big issue here. In any case, you can read about the battles that they fought, etc. But what I really want to get to is how this battle ends in chapter 4, when they finally are able to go back into the temple and rededicate it. In chapter 4, verse 41, this is now Judah Maccabee, or sometimes called Judas Maccabee. It's the same name, by the way. In Hebrew, the name would be Yehudah, Judah. I guess the Greek equivalent of Judah would be Judas. So you can call him Judah Maccabee or Judas Maccabee or Judah the Hasmonean, Judas the Hasmonean, same name. But anyway, they managed to expel the Seleucid forces of Antiochus IV from Jerusalem, from the temple, and they re-entered the temple. If you read verse 41, beginning in verse 41, you can read about how they rededicated the temple. But I'm particularly and you can read that on your own, but I want to direct your attention to verse 52. It says, "Early in the morning on the 25th day of the 9th month, which is the month of Kislev, in the 148th year, which is 164 BC, they rose and offered sacrifice as the law directs on the new altar of burnt offering that they had built. At the very season and on the very day that the Gentiles had profaned it." And that is a reference to that passage that we read back in chapter 2, let's see if I can find, in chapter 1, verse 59, the day that they actually offered, and the Greeks the Seleucid leaders had actually offered a sacrifice on the desecrating altar that they had built. It was that same day, from chapter 1, verse 59, it's that same day going back to chapter 4, verse 54. At the very season, on the very day that the Gentiles had profaned it, it was dedicated with songs and harps and lutes and cymbals. And all the people fell on their faces and worshipped, etc., etc. If you go to verse 59, it says, "Then Judas and his brothers and all the assembly of Israel determined that every year at that season the days of dedication of the altar should be observed with joy and gladness for 8 days, beginning with the 25th day of the month of Kislev." And that, my friends, is the Jewish festival of Hanukkah, which to this day is celebrated by Jews in commemoration of this event on the 25th day of Kislev, the rededication of the temple in Jerusalem by Judah Maccabee, Judah the Hasmonean, and his brothers and his fighters who evicted the Seleucid armies from Jerusalem. But I again want to go back to that idea that this is a small people fighting a large culture, a universalistic culture, a culture that was dominant, that saw itself as universal. Everybody should join. This is a modern culture. Everybody should join our culture. You speak Greek. You can participate in the Greek games. You can participate in this modern Greek culture. And you have this small group of people who are not interested in joining that dominant culture. And they have some key cultural markers, key religious, cultural, ethnic, national markers, whatever you want to call it, that really become key to their religious, ethnic, national, cultural identity. And we saw them for certainly the God that they worship, but also circumcision dietary regulations, Sabbath. All of these things are the key markers that become emblems of sort of what this people is fighting for to maintain their national, ethnic, religious identity in the face of this universalistic contemporary culture. So that's it. We'll spend some time maybe next week when we meet on November 6th, I think it is. If there are any questions, we'll go over this. I want to repeat that I hope that Lana will make her presentation next week, and we'll just then go ahead and follow the syllabus for next week, which means that we do not have any reading in the Oxford History of Biblical World in the Coogan book, so there will be no Coogan review. I would like people to maybe recite from their journal entries. Let's try to do a journal entry. Let's try to do a journal entry at least for this presentation. I might call on you to make a journal presentation either from the 23rd, that is the material from Kings and Prophets that we did on October 23rd, or to recite something from what you might have picked up in this lecture here. So we will have journal recitations, no Coogan review, but we will go on with the guiding questions for the readings that are scheduled for November 6th from the book of Daniel, also all of Mark, the book of the Gospel of Mark, and Revelations. We'll try to do some work on Revelation as well. So that'll be our work for next week, and I will see you on November 6th. Take care. Bye.